Good morning, everybody, from the Melbourne Sales Cardio Studios. And this morning, we are joined by Holly Nunan. Now, we've had some high-energy guests on this show before, but let me give you a tip. This chick is a pocket rocket. She makes it rain energy, and she's got a gift. Hey, Holly, welcome to the show this morning. Lovely to catch up.
Thanks for having me. I love that video, by the way.
Thank you very much. So, Holly, the Holly Project, we've done a little bit of work together, but I call you the child whisperer. But please share with us your gift. And by the way, anyone out there with kids, don't tune out for the next 30 minutes because Holly, I'm sure, is going to rain some gold. So, explain to me your gift, Holly, and how the Holly effect came about.
Sure. So everything I do is around consciousness. A lot of what I do is around conscious parenting specifically, but I don't like to put myself completely in a parenting box because behind parenting, there is a personal journey that really changes how we show up as a parent. So it doesn't have to be about parenting, but yeah, everything around being able to live a very soul-centered life and ultimately being on the path to your life purpose, whatever that might be. And that's how the parenting thing came into play, because I realized the reason as adults we get so off target with even knowing our desires, let alone our dreams and our purpose, is really because we sacrificed those parts of ourselves on the altar of approval from our parents. And that's what initially pulled me in the direction of parenting. I'm like, if parents could just stop shutting their kids down, if parents could stop parenting through a filter of their own triggers, their own trauma, their own wounds, their own baggage, and actually allow these little humans to be who they are here to be, then they will end up on the path of their life purpose. That was my initial intention behind it all. But it definitely evolved over time. And
okay, so how did you know that you were even good at this stuff? Like, when was the, because there's always a time in life when you go, holy shit, I'm actually really good at this.
Yeah. Okay, the story is this. So I was always told my whole life that I have a gift with children. I could always settle a child that no one else could settle, or get a child to listen and change their behavior that no one else could make listen, that kind of thing. But the moment for me, I specifically remember before I had children of my own, I was only about 21 years old, and I was on an aeroplane. And you know that scenario where you're on a plane and then this poor mother with this baby starts screaming.
We've all been there. Yes.
Right. And everyone's sitting on the plane like, just shut that kid up. The poor mother is like knowing, they feel quite embarrassed and humiliated. The baby's in pain or whatever. And this was taking place about 6 rows back from me. And I could feel it. And I've always had this gift, Matt, and there really is the only way I can say it. I've always absolutely known why a baby is crying. There is actually a different sound and pitch in their cry that actually comes from their reflexes that I was easily able to hear that other people couldn't hear. And so anyway, this mother was thinking that, because we were just going up, right, in the plane, and this mother was thinking that her baby had sore ears. Mm-hmm. So she was trying to basically shove her boob in its mouth and make it drink, to give it a sucking reflex so that it clears its ears and all of this. And I could hear why the baby was crying. I'm like, that baby's not hungry. But I was getting anxious for the mother. I physically could feel her energy. And I'm like, this poor mother, this poor baby. And the whole plane is, like the stewards were going past her, seeing if they could help. And I had to wait till we got to altitude and the seatbelt light came off. And I was thinking to myself, do I mind my own business or do I say something? And I really had like this calling, like I literally had something pulling me to her. So I went to her.
I know you well enough to know that you not saying anything wasn't an option, right?
That was never, no, you know me very well. So I just went to her and said, look, I do not mean to, interfere, and please don't take me the wrong way. I've got friends that call me the baby whisperer, and I know why your baby is crying. She's not hungry. She's hot. I actually think if you take the blanket off her and maybe undo her little romper suit, she'll probably calm down. Anyway, within 90 seconds, the baby was calmed, stopped crying, and within 3 minutes, the baby was asleep and had slept the rest of the flight. And then she came up to me in the airport, and so did about 4 other people that were around her on the plane, like really validating my gift and really, really thanking me for having the courage to go and help her, basically. So that was where I
I bet you
realized.
every single person on that airplane really appreciated you, Holly.
I did feel that. I
And
appreciated
so
myself as
it
well.
started there. And so how many years ago was that approximately?
So like 18, 17, 18. I was 21. I remember it was like a few weeks after my birthday. So
Yeah, right. 18
I'm
years ago.
38.
And so you've gone from the first experience, with a baby on a flight, pacifying that baby, to where you are now.
Mhm.
And so where you are now, like how many lives do you impact, on a regular basis now?
Thousands, really. Like, it's actually very humbling to think of the answer to that question. I mean, in a very direct way, I work with hundreds of people every single week on like live coaching calls inside my online program. And the results are profound in there. But just on a daily basis, I have people reaching out to me through social media, with the impact that my perspectives have offered them and their children. So
And
thousands.
so this is just, I've got goosebumps because, I've worked with you and I know the impact that you make with your gift. And most people out there have kids. And, when we say you're the baby whisperer, you're not just the baby whisperer. You're like the child whisperer. You go all the way up to teenagers, I think, don't you?
Yeah, even young 20s. Yep. I've worked with a girl that had bulimia and anorexia at 22 years old, and the principles all still apply.
Yeah, right. And so, I'm going to put the spotlight on you now, Holly. So every parent out there
Mhm.
is saying, Holly, give me a few tips. Like the big one, for example, would
Okay.
be toddler who cracks the shits in the supermarket. What do you do?
Well, you stop running your story first of all. What happens most of the time is parents are not very often parenting the child or parenting the behavior. They actually are parenting and responding to the story they tell themselves about what this behavior means. And this is the biggest thing. This is what opens the door to shifting everything in your relationship with your child at any age, and getting them to listen or having them truly respond to you. And that is understanding behavior of all kinds. Behavior is never random. We're only ever using our behaviors in order to meet our needs, even as adults. And so behavior just identifies an unmet need. And instead of targeting the behavior, if you are able to identify the need that lies beneath that behavior and address and meet that need for the child at any age, the behavior dissolves on its own because the child no longer has to use that behavior in order to get their need met, because it's being met
So, as I
without having.
understand what you just said, and it's been a long time since I've had little kids, but as I understand what you just said, if you've got a child throwing a tanty in the supermarket, it's not about the tantrum. You need to look deeper and find out why the tantrum actually occurred in the first place.
Correct. And
Which
when
I
you're willing
imagine
to
is
do
not
that,
usually, it wouldn't be usually because I can't get a chocolate bar. It would be something else.
and it may come from I can't get a chocolate bar, but ultimately the child might feel powerless, for example. If you see that child through a filter of you're being a spoilt little brat because you want a chocolate bar, and
Katish.
instead you shift that filter to, you're feeling powerless because you can't access something you want, then even your own instant feeling, your compassion towards your own child changes. The desire that you have to handle this child differently in this moment is very, very different. And we all respond with tantrums to moments of powerlessness. And
Amen.
so that's one example. Yeah.
And so, as the life journey continues, so now that tanty, that child doesn't have tanties anymore, but that child is now 9 to 10 years old. So, what's the
Mhm.
most common issue that you help people with a child of that age?
Self-esteem. Actually, it's actually sad to have to say that, the majority of parents I get coming to me are probably got children around the ages of 8 to 11 who are realizing that their child has really low self-esteem, is already on the scary path, Martin. I mean, I'm not going to, kind of make this feel softer, because I feel like it's a tough pill to swallow, but we all need to swallow it. That if a child has low self-esteem, that is what sets them on the path to anxiety, depression, addiction, suicide, all of that scary stuff by the time they're a teenager. And
Totally.
they start disconnecting from a parent at around the age of like 9 or 10, where they'll be like, okay, well, you're not my safe place anymore. I'm just going to go lock myself in my room, stay on my iPad all day. And that's where a parent really starts to notice, I feel like I'm losing my child. Like, now I can see that the issues are bigger than behaviors. But because for the last 5 years, I've been focusing on how bad their behaviors are and giving them consequences and punishments and everything like that, now I can't reach them. And now I can see the problem so much bigger that I've ever been willing to confront myself with. But I feel like now they're disengaging. And so, yeah, it's sad. It's reversible. It's never too late. But they're the people that come to me most often.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful stuff. And anyone that's listening, if you have a question for Holly, just type it in the chat box. If you got a parenting issue, I'm going to throw you in the deep end. Not sure anyone will, but if there is a parenting question you have, just type it in the chat box.
Absolutely.
So you're assisting, mothers, fathers. You're assisting families live better lives. How does that make you feel when because I imagine you have an impact? And how do you know that it's work? How do you know what you do works?
Because it works. I mean, a really short answer is I now have psychologists, occupational therapists, counselors, even pediatricians that refer their clients and their patients to me. And that's very validating for me. I have story after story after story about parents that have, tried everything and nothing works. And within weeks, what I teach works. And I don't feel like that's because I'm better, but I see things from a whole different perspective, and I understand not just how to work on the mind of a child, but the soul journey of the child, and even the karmic journey between the parent and the child. And you see that the parent is part of this too. The parent has a lot of wounding, and that's what causes the conflict in the parent-child relationship. So, Martin, the feeling of significance just so outweighs any feeling of success for me. The feeling of impact and, knowing that I am living my life's work. I don't know of any more fulfilling feeling, including being a parent myself. I mean, I'm going to be dead set real. Of course, we all love our kids, but we need to stop saying that our kids are the most important thing to us. Yes, they are, but our journeys need to be too, because the best way to teach your kids how to live a life that is true to them and, how to go chase their dreams is to let them see you chasing yours and let them see you on your path to your purpose. So that's the most fulfilling, validating feeling to me.
Wow, that's inspirational stuff right there, Holly. Really powerful stuff. I'll just address the elephant in the room just for a second, because, when you talk about spiritual journey for children, I imagine there's some people out there going, yeah, right, Holly, my 2-year-old, you're telling me that my 2-year-old has to meditate, sit cross-legged and chant the chant. So when you say spiritual journey for your children, what do you mean? Just to clarify it for the listeners.
Thank you for clarifying. It doesn't mean some kind of kumbaya journey at all. It means understanding that the mind and the soul are two very separate entities. The mind it's like the computer system that belongs to our body that society programs on behalf of us while we're here in this human experience. But the soul, our soul is the eternal part of our soul is the reason. Like, our child's soul is the reason they chose us as their parents. I mean, our children don't really belong to us, Martin. We are just the portal that they use to enter this human experience. They're not ours. They're not some little piece of clay for us to mold how we want to. Their life's goal is not to impress us or, make us comfortable. And in fact, it's the opposite. It's to trigger all of our shadows so that we can be more expanded versions of ourselves. So that's what I mean by soul. And this is where particularly ADHD and autistic children, there has not been one, there has not been a single child, not one time, with ADHD or autism that have been on NDIS programs all their lives, have been medicated, have been seeing psychologists for 5 years every fortnight consistently. There has not been one that I haven't been able to, I hate the word fix, I'm not going to say fix, but, bring back to life, if you like, through working with the parent in a matter of weeks. Like, I'm talking 6 weeks max for a child that's been working with psychologists for 5 years because of soul work.
Awesome, Holly. Now, this is a sales show, so I want to chat about sales and selling for the next little bit.
Yep.
And we worked together probably about 9 months ago. We started working together for a period of 3 months, working on pitch decks and sales process.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious as to the journey, like your sales process before we started working together, what you learned in regards to the sales process, and then what happened afterwards. Now, let me pre-frame that by, of all the customers that I've ever worked with, Holly is the number one implementer. When Holly does something, you bloody do it, which as a sales guy is great because you don't get results unless you implement. But everyone out there, when Holly is running through the story, just think to yourself, I'm not going to give it away. But a lot of the results are done because you really stepped up and you were actually ending up pushing me, right? I've done that. Let's go again. And I'm used to someone taking 2 weeks on something. You get it done in 3 days, which was great. So just go through what it was before, what you learned, and what it then became.
So I'm going to start by saying this. The reason it was so easy for me to implement like that was because you really made everything align. It wasn't a process that I even had to use my discipline and my determination and my persistence to go through. I was truly inspired because my personal values were very much so aligned with what you were helping me create in the framework. And so I was acting from a place of inspiration, not motivation. And that's a big thing. Like, when you're clear on your values and things like that, and then you meet someone like yourself, Martin, who brings those principles into a sales process. I didn't even know heart-based sales was a thing. So that's what made it easy to be such a big implementer. Yeah, so before you, I didn't have a sales process. I just did conversations with people, and it worked because I was me selling my own thing. And obviously I've got my passion and my belief for it. But then we got to a point where we were ready to scale our business and we wanted to bring on employees, and we had 3 we were bringing on all at once. And I'm like, how do I teach people to be me? Like some of the things I say, they won't even know how to say because they don't have, I guess, the wisdom, the gift or whatever, because I would give people like live coaching on that call kind of a thing. And so I'm like, how do I put it into a system? So before you, to give it to you in some figures, my personal closing rate, if you want to call it that, was around about like 7 to 7.5 out of 10. So like 70-75%. Now today I have like at least a 90 to 95% closing rate, if you like. And that's because you taught me, I'm talking on a personal level here, you taught me, how to really make like the whole posture frame and how to make sure that this person was a right fit for us. And if I'm so clear on being able to identify the person that is not a right fit for us very early in the conversation, like I'm talking in the first 3 minutes, because of the language that you helped me craft to be able to establish that up front, And so if anyone doesn't align or they're not a right fit, lovingly I let them go, and I let them go early in the process because I've got more respect for my own time and for theirs, and I'd never want them to feel sold to. And if they're not aligning, they're going to feel sold to because I'm going to be convincing them of my values, if that makes sense. So it won't feel good to me and it won't feel good to them. So that's one big reason. The result at the time when you came to us in the company, where you helped us do our whole sales process and, our power frames and everything, we 5x'd our business in the first 3 months. 5x. We didn't 5x.
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
We 5x'd not our profits, because we had obviously extra expenses at the time with all the employees, but from a revenue generating perspective, we multiplied the business by 5 times in 12 weeks, in actually more like 10 and a half weeks.
That's absolutely awesome. And so that particular process, and so we were talking offline earlier, and what you've done is since we work together, you're now pivoting from doing a lot of live phone calls now into the online space.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you see the sales process that you've already implemented changing in the online space versus the live selling space?
Oh, I love this. The principles won't change. The principles on our sales process will never change. They are so perfectly aligned with who we are at a values level and how we want people to experience us. So the principles are transferable, basically. But I guess with an online space, what we're doing is we're going, okay, we're going to go through another step of qualifying the lead, if you like, where we're going to go, okay, well, you go watch this webinar, for example, and if you align with that, if that resonates, if you're ready to do this kind of work on yourself and your parenting, then, that which you seek also seeks you, right? So you yourself will sign yourself up without needing to talk to one of us at like a lower level. Then I'm willing to call you and discuss and qualify you to potentially upgrade into the coaching package where you work more closely with me. You helped me get very clear on the kind of people I want to work with, so that I always love what I do, and the kind of people I do not want to work with. And so that is an extra step. So we've gone, okay, well, let's go one step lower, sell it online. If you're ready for that, then you'll know it. You won't need me to convince you of that or highlight that for you. You'll be all in. You'll sign yourself up. Then I'm not coming to you trying to convince you that you need to give your parenting attention. You already know that. You already have that level of awareness because you've already spent $1,000, or $500, whatever it might be, without having that conversation with me. So now I get to even more enjoy my conversation with you.
I love that process, Holly, and regular listeners to the show will know that whether you're James Coulson, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, or Dave Head, or Louisa Hayton, or whoever it may be that we've interviewed, every single business owner that I've chatted with all talks about the importance of a client selection program. And you've kind of gone to the next level where you're going, righto, to qualify for a discussion with me, you at least have to onboard yourself through a lower value program, which is, relatively modest, under $1,000. I'm sure you don't mind me saying that.
No, not at all.
So it's relatively modest, but that's the entry level. And then you can talk to them and go, right, okay, Coco, I'm sure you don't say that.
Well, I might.
That's the old equipment guy coming out. But you say, hey, Mr. Parent, let's chat about what your goals and aspirations are in and around the process. Right. And on customer selection, and I think this is gold because people may be wondering, so you were doing live sales and you were getting the results, and now you're going to online signups, and you told me before we came online why you were doing that, and that staggered me because I didn't realize, but it really is knowing your avatar, knowing your customer and why they reach out. So explain to everybody why you've changed from live selling to click and flick
online. 2 reasons. On a personal level, doing the live sales constantly robbed me of my highest value, which is freedom. And I love to be spontaneous and live my life. The whole reason I went into business and I've never had a job in my life is so that I could always have access to my freedom. And I had some, personal conflicts with feeling like I was an employee of my calendar and of the people who were booking in, and then they wouldn't even answer the call anyway, which brings me to the second point. Doing live calls was just not getting us. I mean, about 5% of people even answer the phone. And we did a
Yeah.
little bit of a test in the market of saying, with a whole bunch of leads that came through over a space of time, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a phone call or would you prefer a link? And it was unanimous that everyone asked for a link. So, like, okay, people don't want to talk to people, and particularly parents. We actually also realized in our CRM, we realized that all the inquiries are made majority between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. when probably parents are right in their pain because they're not asleep. And they're like, I need to sort this out. And obviously we're not available to talk to you at that time. And then when we are available, you're busy with dinner and baths and school time and whatever. So, so we decided.
Allow me just to pause you there, because I think that's just such a powerful point, because it hadn't occurred to me. And because a lot of your customers are certainly parents with smaller children who may be around home.
Yeah.
And we all know, if we've had kids, that you're really time poor until the kids go to sleep.
Absolutely. If they go to sleep.
Right. After they deal with you, though, they'll be sleeping 24 hours a day, right, Holly? But the point is, because you knew your customer, and hey, look, you literally can't have your sales team making outgoing phone calls at 11 o'clock at night. One way to give your potential customers what they needed was to give them this opportunity virtually online.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. And then we actually created a webinar initially, and we put it out to our warm market, like people in the group that have been following us for years and things like that. And we actually had 20% conversion rates for people going to watch an evergreen webinar in their own time. 20% of the people who knew us converted and made a decision and signed themselves up and would wake up the next day to people that are in our program. And then what I also noticed, Martin, was the engagement after learning your sales process, whether we do it online or whether we have done it in person. My biggest thing that I loved was not only did people sign up, they were so engaged in the program. They didn't just sign up and then I never saw them again, because that happens a lot. Oh, yeah, I've paid the money, and oh, yeah, I'll get on the call next week. Oh, I'll do it next week. And we had the most engagement in our private Facebook group. We had people within 24 hours introducing themselves in the group. They were ready for the journey, not just to buy the program. That meant a lot to me, because, especially with the crazy way the world is right now and people losing jobs and fear everywhere, spending $1,000-$2,000 isn't a small deal. I'm not saying it's a big deal, but it's also not a small deal. And I wanted to know you got value from your decision. So that was huge for me.
And I think we were discussing at the time, because you just mentioned the value then, $2,000 is your I'll help you with it course, where you get direct access to yourself.
Yep.
And when you look at the impact that potential $2,000 can have over the life of a child, it's a minuscule investment. Absolutely minuscule. But look, Holly, we're going to wrap up shortly. We've got 3 minutes to go. But I'm really interested as to how people contact you, because anyone out there with parents, one thing I would say is check out Holly's social media. Check out the feeds. You don't have to sign up initially anyway to liaise with Holly. So anyone that's interested in more powerful parenting, in stopping the tanties, in doing everything that you help people with, what's the best way for them to get in touch and see what you do?
Let me say this: don't go to that website up there right now. It's being redone and launched in the first week of May. So thehollyeffect.com. So 2 ways: either send an email if you prefer to do that. So best way is admin@thehollyeffect.com, or follow me on social media. Facebook is our predominant. We actually just started on all the other platforms only a couple of months ago, but Facebook is the biggest for us. So The Holly Effect on Facebook. And otherwise, if you do want to look at a few of the things that we offer, go to thehollyeffect.info. This is like our interim little website while the other one's being rebuilt, thehollyeffect.info.
Awesome, Holly. And you did tell me that earlier on, you and Dave, your husband, were shot 22 videos at the weekend. So as I said to you about this chick, she implements like a mofo. And so 22 pieces of content at the weekend alone. But Holly, hey, look, unfortunately, our time has ran out. We could talk forever. I just love your energy and love what you bring to the world. But it's been great to chat with you today and for you to share your journey in the Sales Cardio Studio. So thank you very much for your time. And everyone else out there, will be back next week. And remember, a sales fit business is a healthy business. And see you then, everybody. Ciao for now.